Oh my god, another Evangelion video. What the frick? What is with this? Why are we still talking about Evangelion a couple weeks after it dropped on Netflix? I don't understand. This is Neon for Clownfish TV. If you haven't subbed to the channel already, please do so for more anime news and pop culture news, views, and rants. We definitely can use the help, especially because, you know, a lot of our videos lately have been demonetized for whatever reason. We really don't talk about too many controversial things, although this one might be slightly controversial. Right after I recorded a video on the Evangelion translation debacle, and Amanda Wynn Lee coming out and telling the fans to eat a dick because they didn't like the new translation either. I'm like, what? I found this other story that the person who did the translation, Dan Kanemitsu, is being accused of supporting those Nazis due to his work on a Strike Witches doujin. I'm like, what? Fans unhappy with the Netflix translation of Neon Genesis Evangelion have begun to direct accusations of creeping on children in support of Nazis toward the translator Dan Kanemitsu based on gross misunderstandings of his previous work. This is coming from Bounding in the Comics. This is the first I've heard of this. So we're going to go down the rabbit hole here, guys. Now, I do know that Strike Witches has come under fire for its Nazi-esque imagery. Of course, this is being one of the anime that you're not allowed to cosplay as at Anime NYC, because apparently any military uniform is offensive and it might trigger someone because, you know, we can't have military uniforms anymore. It will, you know, because they're out in force recruiting people into their Nazi organizations. They're out there recruiting impressionable young men to join them with these busty anime girls. That's what's going on. That's why Anime NYC banned the costumes, because they don't want all these young men, these video game players, to get any funny ideas about joining up with the Nazis. Okay, so as previously reported, Kanemitsu's translation features differences in the script when compared to the previous ADV Films dub of the series, most notably changing in exchange with homo-romantic undertones between Shinji and Kaoru Nagisa to imply Kaoru's ambiguous feelings were more of acceptance and caring for Shinji than romantic. I don't know, you watch the movies, you watch Rebuild, it's pretty obvious he's got the hots for Shinji. Personal opinion. Fans also noted a small change in episode 20, which attributed an attack to lefties instead of just terrorists. So here's the original. In other news, it has been a month since the terrorist act on Tokyo 2. I'm doing this because I don't want to get demonetized, guys, because all these words, this is too controversial. We can't even talk about things anymore without YouTube freaking out. So in other news, it has been a month since the T-word attack in Tokyo 2. And here, and in the Netflix version, it says, since the Tokyo 2 terrorist attack by a lefty. Above the script is seen the Netflix dub of Neon Genesis Evangelion, below the original dub translation of the same scene. In response to seeing this image posted by another fan, Twitter users pointed out to this change as proof that the change was made to the dialogue between Shinji and Kaoru, as it was done intentionally to erase gay representation. LMAO. The guy who erased Kaoru's gayness also changed any translation involving terrorists in order to make it so they were specifically lefties. Let's stop pretending he didn't have an agenda when he took pains to erase the gay representation. They proceeded to trawl through Kanemitsu's Twitter account and seized upon the opportunity to label him as a creeper on children and a proponent of Nazi imagery due to instances of his work found on his timeline. Oh my god, he also translates doujin, where the characters are lollies, Nazi girls from Strike Witches. It gets worse. On his blog, he wrote some bullshit think piece opposing an expansion of Japan's kitty stuff. Oh my god, even worser, he's actually the creator of the sexy Nazi child doujin. Oh my god! Oh my god! What an awful person. He deliberately used his connections to sneak into the translation group for Neon Genesis Evangelion to ruin a ship. That's why he did it. He's trolling Twitter. He's a Nazi in disguise, trolling Twitter. He wants to break your ship. He's gonna ruin your ship forever because this Netflix dub is now canon. It's now canon, and your ship is ruined. The ship has sailed. Oh my God, what a jerk! However, it's clear these accusations and interpretation of Kanemitsu's work are extremely disingenuous. Kanemitsu is the head of the 8th Panzer Regiment Doujin group, which publishes a strike, which is Doujin titled The Lionheart Witch. The character, which was cited as proof of his support for lali content, is an original character created for the Doujin, who at no time is referred to as a child or even put into overtly sexual situations. The character also features decorations of an iron cross, and Twitter asserts it's Nazi imagery, despite the fact that the iron cross was not exclusively Nazi, not a Nazi symbol. First being used by Germany during World War I. In regards to his think piece opposing an expansion of Japan's kitty stuff, Kanemitsu's piece is not a defense of kitty art, but rather a cautionary plea to be wary of the misguided intents and the threats such ill-defined bills pose to artistic freedom and the rights of the public. Yeah, it's a slippery slope, and there's no dirtiness intended by that. But when you start banning artwork of any kind, you know, it's the whole conversation we can have, as long as people, you know what they're actually looking at. So this, he's talking about the ban on manga. He said ban on manga, anime, and video games simply because it features supposedly underage characters is misguided policy that will likely produce only marginal results in exchange for a huge toll on a free society. I'm absolutely certain that history will not look back kindly upon such a ban and will join a long list of colossal failures, such as prohibition of alcohol, various other laws, the comic book code of authority, and bans on socialist literature in Japan during the pre-war era. It is important to note that all these failed moral crusades were led by virtuous and diligent individuals intent on making the world a better place. So at first, many members of society were receptive, brushing aside those that raised objections as being alarmist or extremists. Over time, the regulatory mechanism will form a life of its own. Regulatory policies encourage the custodians of that policy to expand the limits of the regulation because their authority is dependent on the extent of regulation. Sometimes regulatory regime will morph into a beast it was never intended to become, and at that stage it will become extremely hard to reverse such failed policies. That's true. There are a lot of times, and I'm not saying that a lot of bans or censorship don't begin in good faith. You know, that people are like, well, we're going to stop people from saying or doing these things because this is for the greater good, and if we just stop this, then we'll stop some of the ugliness in the world, and that's just us doing our part to stop some ugliness. But a lot of times what happens is when you give people the authority to start censoring, speech, then they abuse the authority. And we're seeing this, to certain degrees in the entertainment industry right now. We're certainly seeing it with social media platforms where it's gone from protecting people, trying to protect people, trying to make things more civilized, to overreaching and policing people for nonsensical issues. We're seeing it all the time. In fact, I would not be surprised if this video wound up being demonetized for even saying such a thing. Speaking of which. So these accusations were eventually seized upon by the Daily Dot, who this user tweeted to address the growing suspicion about Kanemitsu's political leanings in an article titled "Why Did Netflix Erase the Queerness of Evangelion?" While the Dot attempted to ask Kanemitsu about his work on Evangelion, Kanemitsu noted that he could not comment specifically on his Evangelion work, but instead spoke to the nature of translations in general. And we did talk about this. There are cases where you want to make a work especially accessible to a specific target audience by removing or replacing culturally specific concepts inherent in the original work and instead employ expressions and concepts that the target audience is familiar with, even while these may not be a close match to the concepts and nuances of the original source material. In this particular case, I have to tell you, if the original Japanese was that Kaoru is gay, then why are we changing that? You know, but if the translation is very literal and he really wasn't, he wasn't implying those kinds of feelings for Shinji, then you know, I mean, it is what it is. And again, we did a previous video where Amanda Wynn Lee said that she's been dealing with hate for 20 years over the ADV translation, and now, you know, it's kind of ironic that Netflix is getting the same kind of hate, but she's basically telling the fans to go get bent because they're not happy with anything. They're not happy with anything. But a lot of people are, so at this point, like, Netflix Evangelion has not made anyone happy, I guess, except the people who have never seen it and, don't really care one way or the other. They're just happy to be able to finally see the show in some form. But apparently it's just not making a lot of people happy, because the ADV fans are like, why'd you change it? You've got people saying now that they're erasing, the gayness. They're taking the gayness out of Evangelion. It's a cluster. And I don't think Netflix cares. I really don't. I think Netflix is like, yeah, we dubbed it. We dumped it on the platform. We're moving on to other things. Evangelion is a very polarizing series. So this is not unexpected. So your thoughts, give your thoughts below. Kind of curious what you think. Very interesting, though, that they're actually turning on the translator. Well, not surprising at all that they're turning on the translator and trying to paint him as being some sort of a devious fascist type person. This seems to be par for the course for Twitter these days. So your thoughts, comment below. Let us know. Please subscribe to the channel. This has been Neon. Subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants here on Clownfish TV. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.